You ever think you really know someone? I thought I did, until one line at the bank shattered everything. My husband and I were refinancing our mortgage, and the loan officer said, "So about your other property, apartment 12B?" I laughed. We didn't own another property, but he did. And inside that apartment was another woman and her baby. That night, everything I believed about love, loyalty, and truth fell apart. But what happened after? That's the part nobody sees coming. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why I don't believe in perfect marriages anymore. Only honest ones. And hey, if this kind of real, messy, true story content hits you too, don't forget to like, drop a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and hit subscribe. You're going to want to hear how this one ends. 10:47 p.m., hospital emergency room. I'm lying in a bed with white curtains around me, and I'm bleeding. My husband is in handcuffs in the hallway, and the woman in the curtained bed right next to mine, she's 7 months pregnant with his baby, while I'm 8 weeks along. Also with his baby. This is the story of how everything fell apart in one night. But to understand that night, I need to take you back 3 weeks. Back to when I still believed my marriage was solid. Back to when I thought the biggest problem in my life was remembering to take my prenatal vitamins. My name is Claire Hartwell. I'm 34 years old, and 3 weeks ago I would have told you I had my life figured out. Successful real estate agent in Colorado Springs. Beautiful house in a good neighborhood. Husband who ran his own construction company. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 4, no kids yet. We were both focused on our careers, you know how it is. But after 2 years of fertility treatments, I'd finally gotten that positive pregnancy test. 8 weeks along, I hadn't told Derek yet. I was waiting for the perfect moment. I know how this story sounds. Perfect couple, perfect house, perfect life, and then betrayal. But here's what I don't usually tell people when I share this story. I knew something was wrong. For months, I knew. Derek was distant. He worked late, constantly. He stopped touching me except when we were trying to conceive. I'd catch him smiling at his phone, then snapping it shut the second I walked into the room. That guilty little gesture that makes your stomach drop. But I didn't ask questions, because asking questions meant facing answers. And I was so focused on getting pregnant that I convinced myself once we had a baby, everything would be okay again. That was my mistake. I chose ignorance, and that choice nearly destroyed me. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had that feeling? That knowing deep in your gut that something's wrong, but you're too afraid to look? Maybe you're there right now. Maybe you're listening to this and thinking about your own life, your own relationship, wondering if you're making the same mistake I made. If that's you, I need you to hear this. Trust that feeling. Trust it before it's too late. But back then, 3 weeks ago, I was still lying to myself, still playing the role of the happy wife, still believing that if I just didn't look too closely, everything would stay intact. That all changed on a Tuesday morning at First National Bank. Derek and I had an appointment at 9 a.m. to refinance our mortgage. Interest rates had dropped, and our financial advisor said we could save almost $600 a month. It should have been routine paperwork. Sign some forms, shake some hands, save some money. We sat across from Jennifer Smith, the loan officer. She was maybe 50, wearing a burgundy blazer, and she had that efficient, no-nonsense energy of someone who processes 30 mortgages a week. Jennifer Smith pulled up our file on her computer and started reviewing our assets. She asked us about our employment, our income, the standard questions. Everything was going smoothly until she paused, frowning at her screen. "Just need to verify something," Jennifer said. "You've listed an additional property here. 2847 Morrison Street, Unit 12B. Is that rental income or investment property?" I felt my stomach drop. I looked at Derek. "We don't own any other property," I said. Jennifer turned her monitor toward us. According to county records, Derek Hartwell and Claire Hartwell, married persons, purchased this property 8 months ago. Down payment of $127,000 from your joint investment account. Derek shifted in his chair. I heard the leather creak. I heard him swallow. "Oh, that," Derek said. His voice went up half an octave. "That's a business property for staging equipment. I forgot to mention it. I'd been married to Derek for 4 years, together for 7. I knew all his tells, the slight pitch change in his voice, the way he touched his neck when he was lying. And he was doing both right now. I kept my face neutral. I smiled at Jennifer. We should probably table this refinance until we get our paperwork sorted, I said. Can we reschedule? Of course, Jennifer said. She probably saw this kind of thing in all the time. Couples discovering financial secrets across her desk. She was diplomatic enough not to comment. Derek and I walked to our cars in silence. We'd driven separately since I had a showing that afternoon. When we reached his truck, he tried to kiss my cheek. I'll explain everything tonight, Derek said. It's really nothing. Just a business thing. Sure, I said. See you at home. I drove to my office. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone. Then I opened our banking app. I'd never been the kind of wife who monitored every transaction. We had joint accounts, but we trusted each other. Or I thought we did. Now I scrolled back through months of statements, looking for something I should have seen earlier. There it was, 8 months ago, a withdrawal of $127,000 from our investment account. The account we'd been building for our dream house, our forever home, the house we were supposed to raise our kids in. The memo said Morrison Property down payment. I kept scrolling, monthly automatic payments of $2,400 to Morrison Heights HOA, charges to West Elm for $3,400, Pottery Barn Kids for $1,900, weekly Whole Foods deliveries to the Morrison Street address. Then I found it, the thing that made my hands shake so hard I almost dropped my phone, a Target baby registry listed under Derek and Brooke's baby girl. Due date December 18th. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. Pottery Barn Kids, a baby registry, with a woman named Brooke. I was 8 weeks pregnant with his baby, and apparently someone else was 7 months pregnant with his baby. I sat in my car and I cried. Not the pretty kind of crying you see in movies. The ugly, gasping kind where you can't breathe and your whole body shakes. Other people walked past my car in the parking lot. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if I was okay. After 10 minutes, I stopped crying. I wiped my face and I started planning. I didn't go home that night. The thought of walking through our front door, of sitting across from Derek at dinner, of pretending everything was normal while my entire world was crumbling. It was impossible. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I sat in my car in my office parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, at the bank statements that proved Derek had stolen over $100,000 from our joint account, at the baby registry that said Derek and Brooke's baby girl, at the mortgage documents showing a property I'd never heard of, bearing a signature that looked like mine but wasn't. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type, but I managed to send Derek a text, late showing, then dinner with a client. Don't wait up. The lie came easily, too easily. Maybe I'd learned something from him after all. His response came back in seconds. A thumbs up emoji, that's it. Just a yellow hand with the thumb pointing up. Not drive safe or miss you or want me to save you dinner. Just a thumbs up emoji. That's what our marriage had become. Efficient communication stripped of all affection. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 4, and we'd reduced our relationship to emoji responses and logistics management. I looked at that thumbs up for a long time. Then I put the car in drive and headed to Sarah's house. Sarah lived in Briarwood, a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown Colorado Springs. Tree-lined streets with well-maintained houses, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors and had block parties in the summer. Sarah had bought her house 3 years ago, after her own divorce. She understood what it felt like when your life fell apart. I pulled into her driveway and just sat there for a minute. Sarah's porch light was on. Through her front window, I could see her moving around in the kitchen. Normal life, ordinary Wednesday evening. For her, anyway. For me, this was the night everything changed, the night I stopped pretending. The night I admitted that my marriage was built on lies. I got out of the car. My legs felt weak. I walked up to Sarah's front door and rang the bell. She opened it immediately, like she'd been watching for me. One look at my face was all it took. She pulled me inside without a word. Her golden retriever, Biscuit, bounded up to greet me, his tail wagging enthusiastically. He was 5 years old and still acted like a puppy, all enthusiasm and unconditional love. I knelt down and buried my face in his fur. Biscuit stood patiently, letting me hold on to him while my composure cracked. Dogs don't judge. Dogs don't lie. Dogs don't steal your money to build a secret apartment for their pregnant girlfriend. After a minute, Sarah gently touched my shoulder. Kitchen, she said, I'm making tea. You're going to tell me everything, and then we're going to figure out what to do. We sat at her kitchen table, the same table where we'd studied for college finals, pulling all-nighters fueled by pizza and Red Bull. The same table where we'd planned road trips and celebrated promotions and commiserated over bad dates. The same table where Sarah had cried 3 years ago when her husband announced he was leaving her for a woman from his CrossFit gym. Now it was my turn. My turn to sit at this table and watch my life unravel. Sarah made chamomile tea the way she always did during a crisis. She had 2 favorite mugs. One said, "Nevertheless," she persisted, in bold letters. The other said, "Not today, Satan," with a little pitchfork. She gave me "Nevertheless," she persisted. It felt appropriate. Talk, Sarah said. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her about the bank appointment that morning, about the loan officer mentioning a property I'd never heard of, about Derek's voice going up half an octave when he lied about it being for business equipment, about coming back to my office and looking through our bank statements for the first time in months. Sarah listened without interrupting. She had that lawyer skill of sitting completely still, absorbing information, processing it before responding. As I talked, she pulled her laptop over and started taking notes. When I got to the part about the baby registry, Derek and Brooke's baby girl, due date December 18th, Sarah's jaw tightened. But she didn't speak. She just kept typing. I pulled out my phone and showed her everything. The bank statements with the $127,000 withdrawal marked Morrison property down payment. The monthly automatic payments of $2,400 to Morrison Heights HOA. The charges to West Elm for $3,400. Pottery Barn Kids for $1,900. Weekly Whole Foods deliveries to an address I'd never heard of. Sarah scrolled through it all, her expression getting darker with each swipe. When she finished, she looked up at me. Her eyes were hard. This is bad, Claire. This isn't just an affair. This is systematic financial fraud. I know, I whispered. Okay, Sarah said, shifting into lawyer mode. First thing we need to establish is whether your name is on the property deed. If he bought this place without your knowledge and forged your signature on legal documents, that's not just adultery. That's identity theft. That's real estate fraud. In Colorado, that's a Class 4 felony. He could go to prison for 2 to 5 years. How do I find out? I asked. Public records, Sarah said. She turned her laptop toward me. You've got your real estate license. You know how to navigate these systems better than I do. Pull up the county assessor's website. Search for the property by address. I did. My hands were steadier now. I was in problem-solving mode, the mode I used when clients had complicated real estate situations. Pretend this is work, I told myself. Just another property dispute. Just another title issue to resolve. Except this wasn't just another property. This was my life. I typed in the address, 2847 Morrison Street, Unit 12B, Colorado Springs, Colorado. The search results loaded. Property owner, Derek Hartwell and Claire Hartwell, married persons. Purchase date, 8 months ago. Purchase price, $450,000. Down payment, $127,000. My vision blurred. I blinked hard, focusing on the screen. Sarah leaned over my shoulder. Click on the deed, she said quietly. I did. The PDF loaded. There was the standard legal language about warranty deeds and property transfers and covenant agreements. And at the bottom, 2 signature lines. Derek Hartwell's signature, dated 8 months ago, notarized by someone named Jennifer Martinez. And next to it, my signature. Claire Hartwell, also dated 8 months ago, also notarized by Jennifer Martinez. Except I'd never signed that document. I'd never met Jennifer Martinez. I'd never even heard of Morrison Heights Tower until yesterday. Sarah, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. That's not my signature. Zoom in, Sarah instructed. I did. I zoomed in on the signature until I could see every curve and line. And there it was, the proof. The C in Claire was wrong. I'd been signing my name for 34 years. I knew every loop and curve. I made my C's with a full, rounded loop, almost like a lowercase e. It was distinctive. It was mine. This C had a sharp angle at the top, like someone had traced my signature from another document but hadn't quite captured the muscle memory of how I actually wrote. It was close. Close enough to fool someone who wasn't looking carefully. But it wasn't mine. He forged your signature, Sarah said flatly, on a $450,000 property deed. Claire, do you understand what this means? He committed a crime, I said. He committed multiple crimes, Sarah corrected. Identity theft, real estate fraud, possibly wire fraud if he used electronic transfers to move the money. And if he lied on any mortgage documents, that's bank fraud too. We're talking about serious felony charges, federal charges. I stared at the screen, at my forged signature, at the proof that my husband wasn't just a cheater, he was a criminal. I want to see the apartment, I said. I need to see what he's been building there with our money. Sarah pulled up the title company information on her laptop. According to this, you're listed as co-owner. That means you have legal right to access the property. You don't need Derek's permission. You don't need anyone's permission. How? I asked. Call the building manager tomorrow morning, Sarah said. Tell them you're Claire Hartwell, co-owner of Unit 12B, and you need to inspect your property for insurance purposes. They can't refuse you. You're on the deed. What if Derek's there? I asked. My stomach twisted at the thought of walking in on him with her. With Brooke, the woman whose name I now knew, the woman who was 7 months pregnant with my husband's baby. Sarah pulled up another website. Find my iPhone. You still have that family tracking app, right? The one you and Derek used to share locations? I did. We'd set it up years ago, back when we were newlyweds, and thought it was romantic to always know where the other person was. Back when we actually cared about each other's safety and whereabouts. Now it felt like surveillance. I pulled it up on my phone. Derek's phone was at a bar downtown called the Copper Rail. He went there most Wednesday nights after work, or at least that's what he always told me. Drinks with the construction crew, networking, blowing off steam. Maybe it was true. Maybe he really was at the bar, or maybe that was another lie. Maybe he'd left his phone there and was actually at the Morrison apartment with Brooke, decorating the nursery, picking out baby names, living his other life. I'd call the building manager first thing in the morning, but tonight I had a different task. Sarah made more tea. I ate half a sleeve of Oreos without tasting them. We spent 2 more hours going through documents, building what Sarah called the case, bank statements, credit card charges, the forged deed, the baby registry. Everything documented, everything photographed, everything saved to a secure cloud storage that Derek couldn't access. At 11 p.m., Sarah made up her guest room for me. Fresh sheets, a pair of her pajamas, a new toothbrush still in the package. I have these for emergencies, she said, handing me the toothbrush. I've had a lot of clients crash here over the years. Women who couldn't go home. Women who needed a safe place to fall apart before they had to be strong again. Thank you, I said. The words felt inadequate. Sarah had been through her own divorce. She knew what this felt like. The disorientation, the betrayal, the way your whole life could change in the span of a day. Get some sleep, Sarah said. Tomorrow we start fighting back. But I didn't sleep. I lay in Sarah's guest bed, staring at the ceiling, watching car headlights sweep across the walls. I thought about Derek, about the man I'd married 7 years ago, the man who'd proposed to me on a beach in California, sunset painting the sky orange and pink, telling me he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. Had he meant it then? Had any of it been real? Or was I just convenient? A successful real estate agent with a good income and a professional network. A woman who could help him build his construction business. A business partner disguised as a wife. I put my hand on my stomach, on the place where my 8-week-old embryo was growing. I'd been so happy when I saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test. After 2 years of trying of fertility treatments and negative tests and disappointment, I was finally pregnant. I'd imagined telling Derek. I'd bought the best dad ever onesie. I'd planned the perfect moment. Maybe over dinner at our favorite restaurant. Maybe on a weekend morning, bringing him coffee in bed with the onesie wrapped in tissue paper. Now that moment would never happen. Now I'd never see his face light up with joy. Because there was no joy. There was just lies and theft and another woman carrying his baby too. How does a person do this? How does someone look you in the eye every single day, kiss you goodbye in the morning, come home to you at night, and maintain such an elaborate deception? What kind of compartmentalization does that require? I thought about Brooke. I wondered if she was lying awake too, 7 months pregnant, wondering if any of it had been real. If Derek had ever loved her, or if she was just another piece in whatever game he was playing. Tomorrow I'd see the apartment. I'd see the nursery he'd built for a baby that wasn't mine. I'd see the life he'd constructed with money he'd stolen from us. But tonight I just cried. Quietly so Sarah wouldn't hear through the wall. I pressed my face into the pillow, and I cried for the marriage I thought I had, for the man I thought Derek was, for the future I'd been planning that was never going to happen. At some point, exhaustion won. I fell into a fitful sleep full of dreams about apartments I couldn't find, and babies I couldn't reach, and signatures that kept changing every time I looked at them. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through the window, and Sarah was knocking on the door with coffee. Well, decaf coffee. Because I was pregnant. Because no matter what else happened, no matter how my life was falling apart, I was still responsible for the tiny life growing inside me. Time to call the building manager, Sarah said. Time to see what Derek's been hiding. At 9 a.m. exactly, I called Morrison Heights Tower. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own voice. But I forced myself to sound professional, confident, like I did this every day. Morrison Heights Tower, good morning, a man's voice answered. This is Paul Stevens, building manager. How can I help you? Good morning, I said. My name is Claire Hartwell. I'm calling about Unit 12B. I co-own that property with my husband, and I need to conduct an insurance inspection. There was a pause. I could hear keyboard clicking. Let me pull up our records here, Paul Stevens said. He sounded middle-aged, professional, the kind of building manager who took his job seriously and followed protocols. More clicking, then. Mrs. Hartwell, I showed Derek Hartwell as the primary contact for that unit. For security purposes, I'll need to verify your ownership before providing access. Of course, I said. I'd prepared for this. What do you need? If you can email me a copy of your driver's license and the property deed showing your name, I can verify your co-ownership and provide you with the access code. What's your email address? Aisa, he gave it to me. I thanked him and hung up. Then I immediately sent him the documents. My driver's license photo from the DMV, the property deed with my forged signature, the title insurance documents. I felt sick looking at that signature again, so close to mine, close enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking for forgery. But I knew every curve and line of how I wrote my name, and that wasn't it. Paul Stevens called back 45 minutes later. Everything checks out, Mrs. Hartwell, he said. You're verified as co-owner. The access code for Unit 12B is 6749. The unit is on the 12th floor, last door on the right. Would you like me to meet you there to let you in? No, I said quickly. Too quickly, I softened my tone. That won't be necessary. I just need to do a quick insurance walkthrough. Take some photos. Standard procedure. Of course, he said. If you need anything, the management office is on the first floor. Have a good day. I hung up. I sat in my car in Sarah's driveway, and I checked Derek's location on the Find My iPhone app. His phone showed he was at a construction site in Monument, about 40 minutes south of Colorado Springs. He'd be there for hours. I had time. I drove to Morrison Heights Tower. It was one of those beautiful early October days in Colorado. Crisp air, bright sun, the kind of day that usually made me happy. But today, I barely noticed. I was too focused on what I was about to do. Morrison Heights Tower was in the newer part of downtown, all glass and steel, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. The kind of building Derek and I had looked at when we were first married, before we decided we wanted a house with a yard where we could raise kids someday. Turns out Derek got both. The house with me, the apartment with Brooke, the best of both worlds, built on lies and stolen money. I parked in the visitor lot, sat there for 10 minutes, staring up at the building, at the 12th floor where Derek's secret life existed. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I put my hand on my stomach. You and me, I whispered. We're going to get through this together. I promise. The lobby was beautiful. Marble floors, modern furniture, a doorman behind a desk who nodded at me politely. I signed in as Claire Hartwell, Unit 12B, and he waved me toward the elevators without question. The elevator was all mirrors. I watched myself rise through the floors. I looked tired. Dark circles under my eyes from not sleeping. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. I was wearing jeans and a sweater, my standard showing houses outfit. Professional enough to look put together, comfortable enough to walk through properties all day. Except today I wasn't showing a house. Today I was breaking into my husband's secret apartment. Well, not breaking in. I had legal right to be there. But it felt like breaking in. The 12th-floor hallway was silent except for the hum of air conditioning. Soft gray carpet, recessed lighting, abstract paintings on the walls, the kind that looked expensive but didn't actually depict anything. Everything was muted and tasteful and anonymous. Unit 12B was at the end of the hall. I stood in front of the door for a full minute, maybe longer. My hand was shaking as I reached for the keypad. 6, 7, 4, 9. The lock clicked. The door swung open. The apartment was beautiful. That was the first thing that hit me. Derek had always said I had all the design taste in our relationship, that he didn't care about furniture or paint colors or whether the curtains matched the throw pillows. But this apartment proved that was another lie. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed off a view of Pikes Peak in the distance, the mountain's snow-capped summit glowing in the morning sun. Hardwood floors in a honey tone, furniture in shades of gray and cream, modern and clean. Everything looked like it had been professionally staged, like something out of Architectural Digest or one of those luxury home Instagram accounts. Nothing like our house on Oakwood Lane with its comfortable clutter. The mail stacked on the kitchen counter, the dishes in the sink, my real estate files spread across the dining room table. Our life together looked lived in, messy, real. This apartment looked like a showroom, or a fantasy, a life that existed only in Derek's imagination. I walked through slowly, documenting everything on my phone, photos and videos, every room, every corner, every detail. I didn't know exactly why I was doing this, but some instinct told me I'd need proof. Proof that this was real. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The living room had a pristine gray sectional sofa that probably cost $5,000. A coffee table made of glass and steel. Abstract art on the walls and frames that matched the furniture. A bookshelf with carefully arranged books. The kind of decorative books people bought by the yard to make themselves look cultured. I opened one. The pages were pristine, unread. These were props. Set dressing for Derek's performance of being a sophisticated man with taste. In the dining area, there was a table that could seat 6. Had they entertained here? Had Brooke invited friends over to see her beautiful new apartment and meet her wonderful fiancé? Had Derek sat at this table, smiling and charming, playing the role of devoted partner while his actual wife sat at home 20 minutes away, wondering why he worked such late hours? The kitchen was modern and clean. White cabinets, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances that still had that new shine. I opened the refrigerator, organic milk, Greek yogurt, eggs, orange juice, prenatal vitamins on the top shelf. Prenatal vitamins. For Brooke, for the baby she was carrying, for the daughter Derek would have in 2 months. I closed the refrigerator, opened the cabinets. Everything was organized, matching dishes, proper glassware. Not like our kitchen at home where we had mismatched mugs from various conferences and promotional events, where the Tupperware drawer was a chaotic mess because we could never find the right lids. 2 coffee cups sat in the sink. One was plain white, the kind you get in a 4-pack from Target. The other was navy blue with "World's Best Dad" printed on the side in white letters. I recognized that mug. We had 2 of them at home. Derek's construction crew had given them to him last Father's Day as a joke. They called him Dad because he was always giving fatherly advice, always checking on his guys, always making sure they were doing okay. World's best dad. Derek wasn't a father. We didn't have kids, except now he was going to be a father. In 2 months, Brooke would give birth to his daughter, and in 7 months, I would give birth to his second child. Children from two different women who didn't know about each other until yesterday. I picked up the mug, turned it over in my hands. This was real. This was proof. I took a photo of it sitting in the sink. On the refrigerator, held up with magnets shaped like little houses, were appointment cards. Mountain View Women's Health, Dr. Patricia Smith, prenatal appointments. They'd started monthly back when Brooke was in her first trimester, then became every 2 weeks. Now they were weekly. The pregnancy was progressing normally. Everything was going according to plan. The next appointment was tomorrow at 10 a.m. Tomorrow. I could be there tomorrow. I could see the Brooke person in real life instead of just imagining her. The thought formed before I could stop it. I could meet her. I could tell her the truth. Together, we could confront Derek. Together, we'd be stronger. I opened the bedroom door. Derek's clothes hung in the walk-in closet. Not just a few spare items like he'd claimed this was for business purposes. An entire wardrobe. Suits in shades of gray and navy, still in the dry cleaning bags. Casual clothes, jeans, and button-down shirts I'd never seen him wear. A whole section of athletic wear, running shoes and workout clothes, a winter coat, summer shorts. Everything a person would need to actually live here. On the other side of the closet hung women's clothing. Size small. I was a size 8. Brooke was small, petite, probably the kind of woman men called tiny and cute. Everything in her section looked soft and feminine. Flowing dresses in pastels, cardigans, maternity clothes for someone in their third trimester. I touched one of the dresses. The fabric was nice, expensive. Not something a second-grade teacher making $48,000 a year would typically buy for herself. Had Derek bought these for her? Was this part of the fantasy he was creating? The bathroom had 2 toothbrushes standing in a holder on the counter, 2 towels hanging on the rack, monogrammed. D and B, Derek and Brooke, like they were married, like they were the real couple, and I was just some woman who happened to share Derek's last name and sleep in his bed and pay half the mortgage on the house we owned together. Prenatal vitamins sat next to Brooke's toothbrush. I picked up the bottle. The label said Brooke Sinclair. The prescription was dated 7 months ago, right when she would have found out she was pregnant. Brooke Sinclair. Now I had her full name. I could look her up, find her social media, see what she looked like, see if she'd posted anything about her pregnancy, about her wonderful fiancé who was so supportive and involved. I put the bottle back exactly where I'd found it. My hands were steady now. The shock had worn off. Now I was in documentation mode, evidence gathering. This was just another real estate transaction gone wrong. Just another title dispute. Pretend it's work, not your life falling apart. I opened the door to the second bedroom, the nursery, and I gasped out loud even though I was alone. The walls were painted the softest shade of yellow, like early morning sunlight. Near the ceiling was a wallpaper border with dancing elephants holding balloons. Happy elephants, celebrating elephants. A white crib sat against one wall, already assembled, with a mobile of stars and moons hanging above it. The mattress was in, covered with a fitted sheet printed with tiny sheep. Packages of newborn diapers were stacked in the corner. Size newborn, size 1, size 2. Someone had been planning ahead. Someone had been getting ready. The closet was full of tiny clothes. I opened the door and saw them hanging there, tags still attached. Newborn onesies that would be too big at first. 3-month sleepers, 6-month outfits, little dresses with ruffles, tiny jeans, a winter coat sized for a 6-month-old. Someone had been shopping. Someone had been excited. Someone had been dreaming about the baby who would wear these clothes. A rocking chair sat by the window, positioned to catch the morning light. I could picture Brooke sitting there, 7 months pregnant, hands on her belly, rocking back and forth, imagining the baby in her arms. Imagining Derek coming home from work, kissing her hello, picking up their daughter, being a family. The same fantasy I'd had, the same dream. Except she was further along. Her dream was closer to reality. In 2 months, she'd have a baby. I was only 8 weeks along. Barely pregnant, barely real. On the changing table was a baby book. One of those pregnancy journals where you document every week of the pregnancy. I picked it up with shaking hands and started reading. Week 8, we found out today. I took 3 tests to be sure. Derek cried when I told him. Happy tears. He said he's ready to be a father. He said he's going to do everything right this time. This time? What did that mean? Week 12. We told Jake today. He's so excited to be a big brother. Derek took us out for celebration pizza at Jake's favorite place. Derek was so sweet with Jake, asking him if he wanted a brother or sister, letting him feel my belly, even though there's nothing to feel yet. Jake. Brooke had a 6-year-old son from a previous marriage. Derek had been playing stepfather, building a relationship with this child. Week 16, I'm finally showing. Derek keeps taking pictures of my belly. He says he wants to document everything. Week 20, we found out today it's a girl, Derek cried again. He said he's going to spoil her rotten. We're thinking about names. Derek suggested Sophia. It means wisdom. I love it. Week 24, Derek painted the nursery today. He spent all weekend on it. He kept asking me if the yellow was too bright, if the elephants were too babyish. I told him it's perfect. It is perfect. Everything is perfect. I flipped to the front of the book where Brooke had filled out information about herself. Brooke Sinclair, age 29. Occupation, elementary school teacher at Riverside Elementary. Previous marriage ended in divorce 2 years ago. One son, Jake, age 6. There was a section for the father. Derek Hartwell, age 37. Occupation, construction company owner. Previous marriage, divorced. No children from previous relationships. Divorced, no children. Both lies. Complete lies. Photos were tucked into the pages of the journal. Brooke and Derek at a restaurant, both smiling, her hand on her belly. Brooke and Derek hiking, her in maternity activewear, him with his arm around her shoulders. Derek on the floor playing with a dark-haired little boy, building something with Legos. Derek pushing the same boy on a swing at a playground. Derek and the boy building a snowman, both of them bundled up in winter coats, huge smiles on their faces. In every single photo, Derek looked happy, relaxed, like a different person from the stressed, distant man who came home to me every night, like a man who was exactly where he wanted to be. I sat down in the rocking chair. I was still holding the baby book, still looking at these photos of my husband with another woman and another child, living another life, being another person. This wasn't just an affair. This was a complete alternative reality. Derek hadn't just cheated on me. He'd built an entire family structure with someone else. He'd convinced Brooke that he was divorced, that he had no kids, that she was giving him a chance to be a father for the first time. Every morning, Derek kissed me goodbye and drove to work. Or at least that's what he said he was doing. How many times had he actually come here instead? How many times had he spent the day with Brooke and Jake, playing house, pretending to be the man she thought he was? My phone buzzed, a text from Derek. How's your day going? I stared at that text, thought about all the lies, all the deception, all the mornings he'd kiss me goodbye, all the nights he'd come home late, all the times I'd felt like something was wrong, but convinced myself I was being paranoid. I typed back, fine, busy with showings. You? His response came immediately. Same, lots of site visits today. Love you, love you. 2 words that meant nothing. 2 words he probably said to Brooke too. 2 words that were just sounds, empty of any real feeling. I stood up, walked back through the apartment one more time. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, nursery. This was Derek's secret life. This was what he'd built with money he stole from us. And tomorrow at 10 a.m., I was going to meet Brooke Sinclair. I was going to tell her the truth. And together we were going to make Derek face what he'd done. I let myself out of the apartment, rode the elevator back down to the parking garage, sat in my car for a long time, just breathing. Then I called Mountain View Women's Health, made an appointment for 9:30 tomorrow morning. 1 appointment, 2 women, and the truth that was going to destroy everything. I arrived at Mountain View Women's Health at 9:15 the next morning. Early, I wanted to be settled in the waiting room before Brooke arrived. I needed to see her first, needed that small advantage, needed to be prepared before our worlds collided. I'd barely slept the night before. I'd gone home finally, couldn't avoid Derek forever. He'd been home when I got there, watching something on TV in the living room. He looked up when I walked in. "How was dinner with your client?" he'd asked. "Fine," I'd said. "Long. I'm exhausted. Going to bed." He'd nodded, turned back to the TV, didn't ask which client, didn't ask where we'd gone, didn't seem to care at all. That's how checked out we'd become from each other. I'd gone upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom, stood in the shower for 30 minutes, letting the hot water beat down on me, trying to wash away the feeling of contamination. Like Derek's lies had become physical things coating my skin. Now I sat in my car outside Mountain View Women's Health, trying to calm my racing heart. I'd changed outfits 4 times that morning, finally settled on black pants and a cream-colored sweater. Professional, put together, like someone whose life wasn't actively falling apart. The waiting room was designed to be soothing, soft blues and greens on the walls, framed prints of peaceful landscapes. A water feature in the corner, water trickling over smooth river stones. Classical music playing softly through hidden speakers. Comfortable chairs with side tables holding parenting magazines and pregnancy books. Everything calculated to make anxious pregnant women feel calm. I was anything but calm. I checked in with the receptionist. She was young, maybe 25, with pink streaks in her blonde hair and a nose ring. She had that perky energy of someone who genuinely loved her job. "First time here?" she asked, smiling brightly. "Yes," I managed. "8 weeks. Congratulations." She handed me a clipboard. "Fill out these forms and bring them back when you're done. Dr. Smith will call you back in about 15 minutes. I took the clipboard, sat down in a chair that faced the door. I didn't fill out the forms. I couldn't focus on questions about my medical history and family health and whether I'd had any complications with previous pregnancies. I just stared at the door, waiting. At 9:45, the door opened. A woman walked in, very pregnant, 7 months at least, based on the size of her belly. She had long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, though some wisps had escaped and framed her face. She was wearing a soft blue maternity dress that looked comfortable and pretty. She had kind eyes, brown eyes with little laugh lines at the corners. She looked like someone who smiled a lot. She looked like someone I could have been friends with in another life. Someone I might have met at a book club or a yoga class. Someone I could have gotten coffee with and talked about books and life and hopes for the future. She looked nice, and that made everything so much harder. Brooke Sinclair walked up to the reception desk. I could hear her voice, sweet, warm, genuinely friendly. She knew the receptionist's name, asked about her weekend. They chatted for a minute like people who saw each other regularly and liked each other. Brooke sat down 2 seats away from me. She pulled out a well-worn copy of What to Expect When You're Expecting. The book was covered in sticky notes marking different pages. She'd been studying, preparing, getting ready to be a good mother. She was glowing. That's the only word for it. That thing people say about pregnant women, how they glow, it was true for her. She looked healthy and happy and so full of anticipation for the future, for her daughter, for her new life with Derek. I took a breath, forced myself to smile, to be normal, to start a conversation like a normal person would. "Is this your first?" I asked. Brooke looked up from her book. Her face lit up with that smile that reached her eyes. "First girl," she said. "I have a 6-year-old son from my first marriage. But honestly, this feels like starting over, you know? New relationship, new baby, whole new chapter of life. Your boyfriend must be excited," I said. The word boyfriend tasted like ash in my mouth. "Fiancé, actually," Brooke corrected, and her whole face transformed when she said it. She looked radiant. "He proposed when I told him I was pregnant. It was so sweet. He said he wanted to make sure our daughter had his last name, that we were a real family. He's been so amazing through all of this." "What does he do?" I asked. My voice sounded normal. I have no idea how I managed that. Inside, my heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone in the room must be able to hear it. "He runs a construction company," Brooke said. "Works absolutely crazy hours, like 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. But he never misses an ultrasound appointment. Not one. He's always here, always involved. Nothing like my ex-husband, who barely showed up for anything with Jake." "That's wonderful," I said. My face hurt from holding the smile. "You must be so happy." "I am," Brooke said. Her hand went to her belly, that unconscious gesture all pregnant women make. It's not the way I plan things, getting pregnant so early in the relationship. But sometimes life has better plans than we do. Derek says this baby was meant to be. Derek. She said his name out loud. She said my husband's name with such love and trust and happiness. He's parking the car right now, Brooke continued. He insists on coming to every single appointment. Says he doesn't want to miss the moment, she laughed softly. Last week, he spent 20 minutes asking Dr. Smith about the best car seats. I think he's more nervous about this than I am. The room tilted, the water feature was too loud. The classical music was overwhelming. I gripped the arms of my chair. We're having a girl, Brooke said. She was still talking, oblivious to my internal meltdown. Sophia, Derek picked the name. It means wisdom. He said he wants our daughter to be smart and strong and wise. Isn't that sweet? Very sweet, I whispered. The door opened. Time slowed down. I watched in horrible slow motion as Derek walked through the door. He was carrying 2 Starbucks cups, grande cups with the green logo. He was smiling, looking down at his phone as he walked. He always did that, walked while looking at his phone, and I'd always told him he was going to run into something someday. He looked up, saw me sitting there in the waiting room 2 seats away from his pregnant girlfriend. His face went white, completely white, like all the blood had drained out of his body in an instant. The Starbucks cups slipped from his hands. They hit the floor in slow motion. Lids popped off. Hot coffee sprayed across the beige carpet, across people's shoes, across the pristine medical office waiting room. The room went silent. The classical music kept playing. The water kept trickling. But every pregnant woman in the room turned to look. The receptionist stood up. Even Dr. Smith opened her exam room door to see what had happened. Brooke stood up, confused. Derek? She said. What's wrong? Who is this? I stood up too. My legs were shaking, but I stood up. I looked at Brooke, really looked at her, saw the confusion on her face, the concern, the complete lack of understanding about what was happening. I'm his wife, I said. 3 words. That's all it took. 3 words to detonate the bomb that destroyed 3 lives. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. We were all frozen in this terrible moment, this pivot point where everything changed. Then Brooke backed away from Derek, backed away like he'd suddenly become dangerous. Her hand went to her belly protectively. You said you were divorced, she said. Her voice was rising. Other people in the waiting room were definitely staring now. You showed me papers. You showed me divorce papers. You let me Google you. I looked you up online and it said you were divorced. Derek tried to speak. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Claire, he managed. I can explain. When were you going to tell me? I asked. My voice was steady, cold. I pulled out my phone, showed Brooke the property deed with my forged signature. When I showed up at your secret apartment that I apparently co-own, when I found the nursery you built with money stolen from our joint account, Brooke stared at the phone screen. You co-own the apartment? My signature's on the deed, I said. Except I never signed it. He forged my signature. So congratulations, Brooke. He didn't just cheat on both of us. He committed real estate fraud. Identity theft. That's a felony. The receptionist had the phone in her hand now. I'm calling security, she said, her perky energy completely gone. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Older woman, maybe 50, with gray hair and a no-nonsense expression. What's going on out here? Derek reached for my arm. Please, he said. Let me explain. I yanked my arm away. Don't touch me. Brooke was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face, her hand still on her belly, protecting her daughter from this nightmare. You said Claire was unstable, she said to Derek. You said she was mentally ill. You said she wouldn't let you see your son from your first marriage. I felt like I'd been slapped. I don't have a son, I said. We don't have any kids. Brooke pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Then who is this? She thrust the phone toward me. Photos. Derek at a soccer game cheering in the stands with a dark-haired little boy next to him. Derek pushing the same boy on a swing. Derek and the boy at a pumpkin patch, holding a giant pumpkin between them, both grinning at the camera. Derek helping the boy with homework, leaning over his shoulder. I've never seen that child in my life, I said. Brooke looked at the photos, looked at Derek, looked back at the photos. Understanding dawned on her face, and it was awful to watch. "That's my son," she whispered. "That's Jake." She turned to Derek. "You've been using my son? Taking photos with him and telling people he's yours?" "I needed you to understand," Derek started desperately. "I needed you to see that I wanted to be a father, that I could be a good father." "You used my child," Brooke said. Her voice was shaking. "Not with sadness anymore. With rage. You used my 6-year-old son as a prop in your lies. You made him part of this. You made Jake trust you and love you and think you were going to be his stepdad." Security arrived. 2 men in uniforms. The nurse stepped forward. "I'm sorry." "Sorry," she said firmly. "I'm going to have to ask all of you to leave. This is a medical office. You're disturbing patients. You're creating an unsafe environment." We stumbled out into the parking lot, all 3 of us. Derek between Brooke and me, like he couldn't figure out who to focus on, who to try to salvage. The October sun was too bright. Everything felt surreal, harsh. I could hear traffic from the street. Someone's car alarm going off. Normal sounds from a normal world that had nothing to do with the nightmare we were living. Brooke and I ended up sitting on a curb in the parking lot. Both of us needed to sit down. Both of us were shaking. Derek stood a few feet away, helpless, watching us. "I sold my condo," Brooke said. Her voice was hollow, empty. "He said we were buying a house together in Boulder, near good schools for Jake and the baby. I gave him $15,000 for the down payment. Everything I'd saved." I closed my eyes. "That was supposed to be our house," I said. "The house in Boulder. He used our joint savings for the down payment on the Morrison apartment. He was going to use your $15,000 and more of our money for the Boulder house." Brooke looked at me, really looked at me. "I have $8,000 left in my savings," and she said, "I'm 7 months pregnant. I have a 6-year-old son who thinks Derek is going to be his dad. I teach 2nd grade at Riverside Elementary. I make $48,000 a year. I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford to fight any of this. I'm a real estate agent," I said. "I know fraud when I see it. And my best friend is one of the best divorce attorneys in Colorado Springs. She's handled cases like this before." Brooke wiped her eyes. "Cases like this?" she said. "What, multiple women finding out about each other in a doctor's waiting room?" "Cases of financial fraud," I said. "Identity theft, property fraud. That's what he did. That's what we have evidence of. And together we can make him pay for it." We looked at each other, 2 women who should have been enemies, 2 women fighting over the same man, except we weren't fighting over him anymore. We both saw him clearly now. And what we saw was a liar, a criminal, a man who'd used both of us. "He forged legal documents," I said. "That's a Class 4 felony in Colorado, 2 to 5 years in prison. We take this to the police together. We give them everything, bank statements, property records, all of it." Brooke nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "Okay." For one moment, sitting on that curb outside a medical office, I felt powerful. 2 women united against one lying man. I thought we'd found each other just in time. I thought together we'd be stronger. I thought we were going to take him down together. I had no idea how wrong I was. I had no idea that by tonight I'd be in a hospital bed bleeding, watching through a window as police put Derek in handcuffs. I had no idea that Brooke would betray me. I had no idea that Derek's father would choose her baby over mine. But in that moment, sitting in the October sunshine with another woman who'd been betrayed by my husband, I felt hope, just for a moment. Derek was still standing there. His face was gray. His hands were shaking. "Please," he said, "both of you, let me explain. This isn't what it looks like." Brooke stood up. She was shaking with rage. "What you did to my son," she said, "using Jake to manipulate me, making him think you loved him, making him think we were going to be a family. I'll never forgive you for that." She walked to her car. Her steps were unsteady but determined. She drove away without looking back. I stayed sitting on that curb for another minute. Derek sat down next to me, keeping distance between us. "Don't," I said. "Claire," he started. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Don't," I repeated. I pulled out my phone, texted him an address. The Morrison apartment. "Meet me there at 6 tonight. You're going to tell me everything. All of it. Every lie, every betrayal, Everything. And then we're going to figure out what happens next. He nodded. His eyes were red. He looked like he might cry. Okay, he said. I'll tell you everything. I promise. But Derek's promises, I was learning, had never meant anything at all. I arrived at the Morrison apartment at 5:45, 15 minutes early. I wanted to be there first, to have that small advantage of being on my territory. Well, my territory that I hadn't known existed until 2 days ago. My territory that Derek had bought with stolen money using my forged signature. The apartment felt different now. Less like a crime scene and more like a stage where the final act was about to play out. I walked through it one more time, seeing it with fresh eyes after meeting Brooke. This was where they'd played house, where Derek had kissed her goodbye in the mornings, where they'd made dinner together and talked about baby names and planned their future. I sat on the gray couch, the expensive one that probably cost $5,000. I put my hands on my stomach, on the place where my 8-week-old embryo was growing. You're going to hear some things tonight, I thought. Things about your father. I'm sorry for that. Derek arrived exactly at 6. I heard his key in the lock. Of course he had a key. This was his place, his secret life, his carefully constructed lie. He walked in and stopped when he saw me sitting there. He looked terrible. His face was gray. His eyes were red-rimmed. His hair was messy like he'd been running his hands through it all day. Good. He should look terrible. His whole world was falling apart. Mine was too, Claire, he said. His voice cracked. I don't even know where to start. Start at the beginning, I said. My voice was steady. I'd been practicing all afternoon. No crying, no yelling, just cold hard facts. When did you meet Brooke? Derek sat down on the chair across from me. Not next to me on the couch. He knew better than that. 18 months ago, he said. I was doing a construction job at Riverside Elementary, renovating their library. She was there working late one day. We just started talking. And then what, I asked. We got coffee a few times, Derek said. He was looking at his hands, couldn't meet my eyes, just as friends at first. She'd just gotten divorced. I was lonely. You were married, I said. To me, we were living together, sleeping in the same bed. How were you lonely? You know how we were, Claire, Derek said. He finally looked up at me. You were so focused on getting pregnant, on the fertility treatments. Every conversation was about ovulation calendars and hormone levels and why it wasn't working. I felt like I was just a sperm donor. Like you didn't even see me anymore. I felt that familiar guilt try to creep in. The guilt I'd been carrying for 2 years. Maybe if I'd been more attentive. Maybe if I'd focused more on our relationship instead of obsessing about getting pregnant. Maybe this was partly my fault. Then I remembered the forged signature, the stolen money, the 7 months pregnant woman who thought she was engaged to a divorced man. And the guilt evaporated. So you started sleeping with her, I said. Not right away, Derek said. We were just friends for months. But then one night, I don't know, things changed. And after that, I couldn't stop seeing her. When did she get pregnant? I asked. Around a year ago, Derek said. It was an accident. She was on birth control. We weren't trying, it just happened. Nothing just happens, Derek, I said. You made choices. Every single day for a year you made choices. You chose to lie to me. You chose to lie to her. You chose to buy this apartment with our money. I panicked, Derek said. His voice was rising now, defensive. When Brooke told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I couldn't leave you because I needed your signature on the business refinancing. Dad was pressuring me to settle down, prove I was responsible. I thought if I could just manage both situations until the business transfer went through, then I could figure out what to do. So I was what? I just asked. A business asset, something you needed to maintain until the paperwork cleared? He didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. What about the forged signature, I asked. When did you do that? 6 months ago, Derek said. My lawyer suggested it. He said it happens all the time in real estate. Married couples sign for each other constantly. He said as long as the money came from our joint account, it wouldn't be a problem. Your lawyer told you to commit felony fraud, I said. He didn't put it that way, Derek muttered. What did you tell Brooke, I asked. About me? About us? Derek looked down again. I told her we were divorced, he said, that it had been finalized a year ago. that you'd been mentally unstable during the marriage, that we tried to have kids but you miscarried and blamed me for it. I felt sick. Those lies, those specific, calculated lies designed to make Brooke feel sorry for him, to make her think she was saving him from a terrible situation. And Jake, I asked, you used her 6-year-old son to make yourself look good? I wanted her to see that I could be a good father, Derek said, that I wanted to be a family with her and Jake. I wasn't using him. I care about that kid. You lied about him being your son, I said. You took photos with him and told people he was from your first marriage. That's not caring about him, Derek. That's using him as a prop. Derek put his head in his hands. I know, he said. I know it was wrong. All of it was wrong. But I didn't know how to stop. The lies just kept building. Every day it got harder to tell the truth. At 6:45, there was a knock at the door. I'd texted Brooke the address earlier, told her to come at 6:30, but she was late. Probably had to get a babysitter for Jake. Probably cried in her car before coming up. I opened the door. Oh. Brooke stood there, her pregnant belly prominent, her eyes red from crying. She looked at Derek with such contempt. Tell me everything, Brooke said. Her voice was hard. No more lies. I want to know everything. Derek confessed it all again. The timeline, the lies he'd told each of us, the stolen money, the forged signature, his plan to have me sign the business transfer papers and then divorce me once everything was secure. With each revelation, I watched Brooke's face change. Shock, hurt, anger. The same emotions I'd gone through over the past 2 days. You told me Claire was keeping your son from you, Brooke said. You told me she was vindictive and unstable. I needed you to understand why I couldn't just walk away from the situation. Derek said weakly. You made me the other woman, Brooke said. Tears were streaming down her face now. You made me complicit in destroying a marriage. I have a son. I'm a teacher. I'm supposed to be a good person. And you made me into someone who breaks up families. You didn't know, I said to Brooke. Neither of us knew. He lied to both of us. We stood there, the three of us, in that beautiful apartment built on lies and stolen money. And I realized something. Derek wasn't a monster. He was worse. He was a coward who'd rather build elaborate deceptions than face difficult truths. I felt cramping, low in my abdomen, a pulling sensation that made me catch my breath. Are you okay? Brooke asked. She noticed immediately. Pregnancy solidarity. I think so, I said. But even as I said it, the cramping got worse, sharper, and then I felt it. Wetness, warmth spreading through my jeans. I looked down. Blood was seeping through the denim. I'm bleeding, I said. My voice sounded far away. Derek, I'm bleeding. Everything after that happened very fast. Derek ran to get towels. Brooke pulled out her phone and called 911. I sat back down on the couch, hands pressed against my stomach, terrified. Please, I whispered. Please don't let me lose this baby. Not now, not after everything. The 911 dispatcher's voice came through Brooke's phone speaker. What's the emergency? Pregnant woman. Bleeding, Brooke said. Her voice was steady, professional, teacher voice. 8 weeks along, moderate bleeding, conscious and alert. Address? The dispatcher asked. Brooke gave the Morrison apartment address. The ambulance is 5 minutes away, the dispatcher said. Keep her calm. Have her lie down if possible. Don't let her stand up. Brooke knelt next to me. She put her hand on my shoulder. You're going to be okay, she said. The baby's going to be okay. Sometimes bleeding happens. It doesn't always mean something's wrong. But we both knew it could mean something was wrong. We both knew that 8 weeks was fragile. That plenty of pregnancies ended at 8 weeks. That all my hoping and planning and dreaming could end right here on this expensive couch in my husband's secret apartment. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes. It felt like an hour. The paramedics came up to the 12th floor with a stretcher. They asked me questions. When did the bleeding start? How much blood? Any pain? Any cramping? I answered mechanically. The cramping had eased slightly, but the bleeding continued. One of the paramedics, a woman maybe 40 with kind eyes, took my blood pressure. A little elevated, but that's normal given the circumstances, she said. We're going to take you to Memorial Hospital. They have a great obstetrics team. They loaded me onto the stretcher. "I'm coming with you," Brooke said. She climbed into the ambulance without asking permission. Derek tried to follow, but the paramedic stopped him. "Only one person in the ambulance, sir. You'll have to follow in your vehicle." In the ambulance, Brooke held my hand. It was surreal. This woman I'd met that morning. This woman carrying my husband's baby, holding my hand while I might be losing mine. "Are you going to keep it?" Brooke asked quietly. "If everything's okay, I mean. Are you going to have the baby?" I looked at her. "I tried for 2 years to get pregnant," I said. "Fertility treatments, hormone shots, months of disappointment. I'm not giving up now," Brooke nodded. "Then we'll figure this out," she said. "Whatever happens with him, we'll figure it out. Our babies are going to be half siblings. That matters more than whatever Derek did." I wanted to believe her. I really did. The emergency room at Memorial Hospital was busy. Friday night in October. They took me straight back to a bay with curtains around it. A nurse came in, young guy with a gentle manner, started an IV, took blood for labs, explained that the doctor would be in shortly to do an ultrasound. Brooke sat in the chair next to my bed. Derek paced in the hallway. I could see his shadow through the curtain. The nurse put Brooke in the bay next to mine. She was having contractions. "Stress-induced," the nurse said. "False labor, but we want to monitor you both just to be safe." So there we were, side by side, two pregnant women in adjacent ER bays, both carrying the same man's babies, both terrified, both trying to process what our lives had become. The doctor came in around 8:30. She was maybe 50, with gray hair and competent hands. "I'm Dr. Rivera," she said. "Let's take a look at this baby." She squirted cold gel on my stomach, moved the ultrasound wand around. I held my breath, stared at the screen, looking for that tiny flicker that would mean my baby was still alive. "There," Dr. Rivera said. She pointed to the screen. "That's the heartbeat. See it?" I started crying. Relief, fear, exhaustion, everything hitting me at once, strong and steady. Dr. Rivera said, "Baby looks good, but you're spotting, which means you're at risk. I'm prescribing complete bed rest for a week. No work, no stress, no physical activity. Your body's been through a trauma tonight. We need to give it time to stabilize." "What about the baby long term?" I asked. "Too early to say," Dr. Rivera said honestly. "The next few days are critical. If the bleeding stops and the cramping subsides, that's a good sign. But you need to take this seriously. Rest, hydration, no stress, no stress." How was I supposed to have no stress when my entire life was falling apart? As I lay there, I heard Derek's phone ring in the hallway. I heard him answer. "Dad," he said, and then his voice got defensive. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I could hear Derek. "No, just listen. I can explain. Dad, please. It wasn't like that. Dad, don't. Just giving me a chance to." Then his phone clattered to the floor. I heard him curse, heard him trying to call back, heard the call go straight to voicemail. 30 minutes later, two police officers walked into the ER. One was older, maybe 55, with gray hair and a weary expression. The other was younger, sharp-eyed, taking in everything. "Derek Hartwell?" the older officer said. "Yes," Derek said from the hallway. "Sir, you're under arrest for real estate fraud and identity theft." The officer began reading Derek his Miranda rights. I watched through a gap in the curtain as they put handcuffs on him. Derek's face was gray, his shoulders slumped. He looked broken. Part of me felt satisfaction. He deserves this, I thought. He stole from me. He lied to everyone. He forged legal documents. But another part of me felt something else. Grief. For the man I thought he was. For the marriage I thought we had. For the future we'd planned that was never going to happen. Around 10:30, Brooke's curtain slid open. She walked over to my bed. Her face was serious, closed off. "Claire," she said, "I need to tell you something." My stomach sank. I knew what was coming. I could see it in her eyes. "Derek's father called me," Brooke said. "He offered me a deal." "What kind of deal?" I asked. But I already knew. "He's paying my medical bills," Brooke said. "All of them, giving me $100,000 and offering me a job at Hartwell Construction, full benefits, health insurance, 401k maternity leave." I waited. There was more. In exchange, Brooke continued, I sign away Derek's parental rights to Sophia. I don't testify against him in the criminal case, and I never contact your family again. So you get everything, I said, and I get nothing. Brooke's eyes filled with tears. I'm 7 months pregnant, she said. I have a 6-year-old son who just found out the man he thought was going to be his stepdad is a criminal. I teach second grade. I make $48,000 a year. Claire, I can't turn this down. I can't. He committed fraud against both of us, I said. I know, Brooke said, and I'm sorry, I really am. But I have to think about my kids. I have to do what's best for them. What about doing what's right, I asked. Sometimes those aren't the same thing, Brooke said. She walked back to her bed. The curtain closed between us. I lay there alone in that hospital bed, holding an ultrasound photo of my 8-week-old embryo, and I realized something. That night I'd lost everything. My husband was arrested. His father had chosen Brooke's baby over mine. The only ally I'd had took a deal, and I was 8 weeks pregnant, bleeding, and completely alone. Sometimes you think you've hit bottom, and then the floor drops out again. They kept me in the hospital overnight for observation. I lay in that bed until 6 a.m. when Dr. Rivera came back, checked me over, and cleared me to go home. The bleeding had stopped. The cramping had subsided. My baby's heartbeat was still strong. You got lucky, Dr. Rivera said, but that doesn't mean you're out of the woods. Strict bed rest for the week minimum. I'm serious about this. No work, no driving, no doing anything that isn't absolutely necessary. She handed me paperwork, instructions for bed rest, warning signs to watch for, a prescription for prenatal vitamins with extra folic acid, numbers to call if anything changed. Sarah picked me up at 6:30. She'd been calling all night, but I'd turned my phone off. Couldn't deal with anyone except the medical staff monitoring my baby's heartbeat. In Sarah's car, I finally turned my phone back on. 63 missed calls, 47 text messages, most from Derek's number. He'd been allowed one phone call from jail, and he'd spent it calling me over and over. I deleted them all without reading them. What now? Sarah asked as she drove me home. Now we file for divorce, I said. My voice was flat, emotionless. I'd cried all my tears last night. Emergency protective order. I want him out of the house completely. I want him to have no access to me or any of our property. Sarah nodded. She was in lawyer mode, efficient, focused, and we use that forged deed as leverage, she said. He either signs over everything in the divorce, or you testify at his criminal trial and he goes to prison for the maximum sentence. What's the maximum? I asked. Identity theft is a class 4 felony, Sarah said. 2 to 6 years. Real estate fraud adds another 2 to 5. If we can prove he intended to defraud you from the beginning, we might get conspiracy charges too. We're talking about potentially 10 years in prison if the judge is harsh. Good, I said. Let him rot. Sarah glanced at me. You don't mean that, don't I asked. He stole over $100,000 from me. He forged my signature. He built an entire secret life while I was taking fertility drugs and wondering what was wrong with our marriage. Why shouldn't he go to prison for the maximum sentence? Because that's not who you are, Sarah said gently. You're angry right now. You have every right to be angry, but you're not vindictive. You're not cruel. You want justice, not revenge. I'm not sure there's a difference right now, I said. We pulled into my driveway, my house, the house Derek and I had bought together 4 years ago, the house we'd planned to raise our kids in. It looked the same as always. Same blue shutters, same flower beds I'd planted last spring, same welcome mat on the front porch. But everything was different now. Sarah came inside with me. She made me tea while I sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Derek and I had eaten breakfast together just yesterday morning. Had it only been yesterday? It felt like a lifetime ago. Derek's lawyer called at 9 a.m. His name was Michael Smith. He sounded tired. Mrs. Hartwell, he said, I represent your husband. I'd like to discuss a potential resolution to this situation. I put him on speaker so Sarah could hear. I'm listening, I said. Derek is willing to plead guilty to the fraud charges, Michael Smith said. He'll accept 18 months in minimum security prison and 3 years probation. In exchange, he's offering to sign over all marital assets in the divorce. The house, the cars, full custody of your unborn child. He won't contest anything. And what does he want in return? Sarah asked. She'd pulled out her laptop and was taking notes. He wants Mrs. Hartwell to not testify at his criminal trial about certain details, Michael Smith said. The forged signatures, the extent of the financial fraud, the lies he told to both women. If she testifies to all of that, the prosecutor can push for maximum sentencing. Derek wants to avoid that. So he wants me to downplay how bad it was, I said. He wants you to stick to the basic facts without editorializing, Michael Smith said carefully. Sarah and I looked at each other. She raised her eyebrows. Your call, she mouthed. I thought about it. Thought about Derek sitting in a cell for 5 or 10 years. Thought about going to trial. Thought about having to relive all of this in front of a judge and jury. Thought about my baby being born while I was in the middle of a criminal trial. I'll take the deal, I said, but I want it in writing, every single asset, every penny he owes me, full custody with supervised visitation only if he requests it. Done, Michael Smith said. I'll have the paperwork drawn up by Monday. The divorce moved faster than any Sarah had ever processed. Derek signed everything from jail. Didn't fight, didn't contest, just signed his name and let it all go. The house became mine, the cars became mine, the money from selling the Morrison apartment, after legal fees, went into an account in my name only, $140,000. Not nearly enough to compensate for what I'd lost emotionally, but enough to start over. Derek took his plea deal, 18 months in minimum security, 3 years probation, loss of his contractor's license. His father sold Hartwell Construction to a competitor rather than risk the company's reputation being tied to Derek's crimes. But the real consequences happened immediately, before Derek even went to prison. Richard Hartwell sent an email to every construction industry contact in Colorado. Professional, brief, devastating. The email said that Derek Hartwell was no longer associated with Hartwell Construction due to personal conduct that violated the company's ethics standards. He strongly recommended that anyone working with Derek seek alternative contractors. That email destroyed Derek's professional reputation overnight. Someone leaked the court documents to the local business journal. Within a week, everyone knew what he'd done. Forged his wife's signature. Stolen money from joint accounts. Maintained a secret apartment with a pregnant girlfriend while his wife thought they were happily married. The local business community Facebook groups lit up. People I'd never met were commenting, taking sides, most of them on mine. I became a story, the real estate agent who'd survived financial fraud and come out stronger. And here's the strange thing. My business exploded. Women going through divorces sought me out specifically. I know what it's like, I'd tell them. I know how it feels when your whole world falls apart. I can help you find a new home, a fresh start. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was barely holding it together. But I learned to act strong. I learned to put on my professional face and help other women navigate their own disasters. 4 months after that night in the hospital, I stood in my kitchen making breakfast. My kitchen, my house, my life. The divorce was finalized. Derek was in prison. The bleeding had stopped after a week of bed rest. My baby was growing on schedule. I put my hand on my stomach, now showing with a small bump. We made it, I thought. We survived. The worst was over. Or so I thought. My daughter Vera was born on March 23rd, 6 months after that night in the hospital emergency room. 6 months after everything fell apart. She arrived 3 days before her due date at 6:47 in the morning, weighing 7 pounds 3 ounces. She had a full head of dark hair and eyes that the nurses said might turn blue or might stay gray. I named her Vera, it means truth, because that's what I'd finally found after years of living in Derek's carefully constructed lies, the truth about who he really was, the truth about what our marriage had actually been, and the truth about my own strength, which I discovered I had more of than I'd ever imagined. Sarah was my birth coach. She'd taken a Lamaze class with me, practiced breathing techniques, packed my hospital bag. My parents flew in from Arizona the day before Vera was born, like they somehow knew their granddaughter was coming. They stayed for 2 weeks, my mother cooking meals and doing laundry, while my father assembled baby furniture and told me stories about when I was born. Richard Hartwell sent flowers to the hospital, a massive arrangement of pink roses and white lilies with a card that said simply congratulations. No offer to visit, no request to meet his granddaughter. just flowers and a card. I threw the card away, but kept the flowers because they were beautiful, and Vera deserved beautiful things in her hospital room. I didn't hear from Brooke. I knew she'd had her daughter Sophia in December, right on schedule. Sarah kept tabs on the situation for legal purposes, making sure Richard was following through on his promises to Brooke. He was. She worked in human resources at what used to be Hartwell Construction, now owned by a company called Summit Builders. She had health insurance and a 401k and paid time off. She and Jake were doing fine, according to the reports. Sometimes I wondered if Brooke thought about me, if she felt guilty about taking Richard's deal, if she wondered how Vera and I were managing, but I didn't reach out, and neither did she. Some connections are forged in trauma, and they can't survive once the immediate crisis is over. Maybe that was for the best. Derek served 14 months of his 18-month sentence. He got out early for good behavior. Sarah called to tell me the day he was released. I was feeding Vera, who was 10 months old by then, getting ready to transition to solid foods and making a mess of pureed sweet potatoes. "Where did he go?" I asked, wiping orange goo off Vera's chin. "Last known address is Fort Collins," Sarah said. "About an hour north. He's living with a roommate, working at Home Depot in the building materials department." "Child support?" I asked. This was the practical question now. Not about love or betrayal or broken promises. Just money. Just the legal obligation of a father to support his child. $847 a month, Sarah confirmed. It's automatically deducted from his paycheck. Direct deposit to your account. You don't have to interact with him at all. "And visitation?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "He has supervised visitation rights," Sarah said, "but he has to formally request it through the court system." So far he hasn't. I wasn't surprised. Derek had never actually wanted to be a father. He'd wanted the image of being a father, the performance of it, the way it made him look responsible and mature. But the actual work of parenting, the sleepless nights and dirty diapers and constant demands of a tiny human who needed you, that wasn't part of his fantasy. My real estate business expanded in ways I never expected. I hired 2 new agents, both women who'd gone through divorces themselves. I started specializing in helping women who were leaving marriages, women who needed to sell houses quickly or find new homes on limited budgets, women who understood what it felt like when your whole life imploded overnight. I was good at it, better than I'd ever been before selling regular properties to regular families. Trauma teaches you empathy if you let it. It teaches you how to sit with someone's pain without trying to fix it, how to be practical and compassionate at the same time. On weekends, I took Vera to the park. I joined a single mothers group that met every Thursday evening. We took turns hosting, bringing wine and takeout, complaining about co-parenting and dating, and the exhaustion of doing everything alone. These women became my tribe. They understood in ways my married friends never could. I went on a few dates. A high school history teacher named Marcus, who had joint custody of his 8-year-old daughter. We went to dinner twice, coffee once. He was nice, stable, drama-free, but the chemistry wasn't there. We parted as friends. 6 months after Vera was born, a Christmas card arrived in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting from the baby book I'd seen in the Morrison apartment nursery. Brooke's handwriting, neat and careful, the handwriting of an elementary school teacher. Inside was a photo of Brooke and Sophia. Sophia had Derek's nose and Brooke's warm brown eyes. She was smiling in that way babies smile when they're genuinely happy. On the back, in that same neat handwriting, Brooke had written just 5 words. "We're doing okay. Hope you are too." I stood in my kitchen holding that card for a long time. Vera was in her bouncer nearby, playing with a stuffed elephant. I looked at the photo of Sophia, my daughter's half-sister. A little girl who would grow up knowing her father from supervised visits if he ever bothered to request them. A little girl who would eventually have questions about why her parents weren't together. I put the card on my refrigerator. Not because Brooke and I were friends. We weren't and probably never would be. But because it felt important to acknowledge that she'd been a victim too. That we'd both been used by the same man. That both our daughters deserved better than the father they'd gotten. Sometimes late at night, after Vera was asleep, I'd sit in her nursery in the rocking chair I'd bought myself and think about the woman I used to be. The woman who ignored red flags because she was so focused on getting pregnant. The woman who chose ignorance over truth because the truth was too scary to face. I didn't miss that woman. She'd been fragile in ways I wasn't anymore. She'd needed Derek in ways I no longer needed anyone. She'd believed that happiness came from having the right relationship, the right house, the right life plan. Now I knew better. Happiness came from telling yourself the truth, even when that truth destroyed everything you thought you wanted. 1 year after that night in the hospital, I took Vera to Washington Park on a Saturday afternoon in October. The leaves were changing colors, gold and red and orange against the bright blue Colorado sky. Vera was 8 months old, sitting in her stroller, making happy babbling sounds at everything she saw. The ducks on the pond, the dogs walking by, the other children on the playground. I sat on a bench watching her, and I thought about everything that had happened. The bank appointment that started it all, the secret apartment, the confrontation in the doctor's waiting room, the hospital, the divorce, the year of rebuilding my life from nothing. People always asked me if I got revenge. The answer was no. I got something better. I got the truth. That night in the hospital, I thought my life was over. My marriage was done. My savings were depleted. My trust in my own judgment was shattered. I was 8 weeks pregnant and bleeding and completely alone. But here's what I didn't know then. That night wasn't an ending. It was the truth finally catching up to the lies. All the lies Derek had told. All the lies I'd told myself to avoid facing reality. I'd spent 2 years lying to myself, telling myself Derek was just stressed about work, that his distance was normal, that once we had a baby, everything would go back to how it used to be. I'd chosen ignorance because asking questions meant facing answers I wasn't ready for. Derek had spent 18 months lying to everyone, to me, to Brooke, to his father, to himself, building this elaborate house of cards where he could have everything he wanted without facing any consequences. And when lies collapse, they take everything down with them. The marriage, the business, the relationships, the reputation, everything built on that false foundation crumbles. But underneath was solid ground, reality, truth, the foundation I could actually build on. A woman with a toddler sat down on the bench next to me. Her little boy immediately wandered over to look at Vera. He was maybe 2 years old, curly blonde hair, chocolate smeared on his face. "How old?" the woman asked, smiling at Vera. 8 months, I said. "They're so sweet at this age," she said. "Still portable, still taking naps. Enjoy it while it lasts." We both laughed. That universal understanding between mothers. "Dad helping out?" she asked. It was the question everyone asked eventually. The polite way of figuring out if you were married, divorced, widowed, single by choice. "Not in the picture," I said. The words came easily now. No shame, no explanation needed. The woman gave me a knowing look. "Better that way sometimes," she said. "Yeah," I said, "it really is." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching our kids. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Vera reached for my hand and held on tight, the way babies do when they're content. I thought about Derek. According to Sarah's last update, he'd gotten engaged again, to a woman named Jennifer, who worked as a nurse at a halfway house. They'd met during his mandated community service hours. The engagement had happened fair, just like with Brooke. Derek following the same pattern, finding vulnerable women and selling them a fantasy. I didn't feel sorry for Jennifer, but I hoped she Googled him. I hoped she asked the right questions. I hoped she trusted her instincts if something felt wrong. As for me, I wasn't healed. I wasn't over it. I still had moments where I saw a man who looked like Derek from behind, and my heart stopped. I still had dreams sometimes about that apartment, that nursery, those ultrasound photos. I still wondered sometimes what would have happened if I'd confronted him differently, if I'd asked questions sooner, if I trusted my gut when I first felt something was wrong. But I was okay. And honestly, that was enough. Because I'd rather be okay alone than perfect in a lie. I'd rather be building something real with my daughter than maintaining an illusion of happiness that was hollow at its core. That night, everything fell apart. My marriage, my illusions, my plans for the future. All of it collapsed in the space of 6 hours. And you know what? I was grateful. Not for what Derek did, not for the pain and betrayal and trauma, but for the fact that the truth finally came out. Because living in that lie was killing me slowly. I just hadn't realized it yet. I was so busy performing the role of happy wife, successful businesswoman, woman who had it all together that I'd stopped noticing how miserable I actually was. The truth set me free. Not in some inspirational poster kind of way, but in the real, messy, painful way that truth actually works. It destroyed everything that wasn't real, everything that couldn't withstand scrutiny, everything built on false foundations. And what was left? Me, Vera, my business, my real friends, my actual life, not the performance of a life. The sun was setting now. Vera was getting fussy, ready for dinner and bath time. I stood up, said goodbye to the woman with the toddler, and headed home. My home, my life, my truth. We were going to be just fine.